Kanye West has called Emma Gonzalez his hero. But instead of referring back to him, she has instead referred to James Shaw Jr., the hero of the Waffle House shooting, instead. So recently we have these tweets from Kanye himself. He has been going on a fun media blitz, but recently he tweeted, "My hero, Emma Gonzalez," with a picture of her, followed by, "Inspired by Emma, shaved his head." Took me a while to get that one. And then Emma's response, "James Shaw Jr., who actually I would describe strongly as a hero." I did a Facebook video on this recently, but James Shaw Jr. is the one who stopped the gunman of the recent Waffle House shooting with his bare hands. A good way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with no gun. And he has not been acknowledged by Trump at all, which I would categorize this as epic levels of cowardice, because James doesn't seem to fit into current narratives of civilians needing automatic rifles or white supremacists not being normalized. Is that the word? And I would call this man a bona fide hero. And I agree with her.
Well, there's no question about it. I mean, it was a great response. There's no question about it. He's a hero who really, as you say, hasn't been recognized at the highest levels the way normally leadership, in the case of this president, President Trump, normally likes to sort of wrap himself around heroic messages. But I think Kim's right. I mean, this guy doesn't fit a lot of the narrative that this administration is about. And as a result, the story goes orphaned, at least in terms of being recognized as a hero. But yeah, Emma really did.
I mean, when you look at Emma and James, they're both people who are similar to each other in that they're standing up for a cause that isn't completely narcissistic. I think Kanye sees a lot of himself in Trump because, well, I did listen to his 2 songs that he released this weekend. Not the one that goes poopity scoop, but the other one in which he says, Obama was heaven sent, but Trump proved that I could be president. He sees himself as an outsider like him because he has constantly tried to get acknowledged by people with power and fame. Like, I think he's done songs about not being recognized by the fashion industry. But also, you'll remember President Obama epically denied him a relationship. He called him a jackass. He never took him seriously, and he's complained a lot about him and his wife not being taken seriously. And I think he sees himself in Trump.
I think the easiest way of just never to be taken seriously by anyone except for bad faith political actors like those at Fox News is to tweet out consecutive rants about how the Democrats actually created the KKK and that the Republicans were the ones who were responsible for the slaves being freed, completely discounting, like the last 40 to 50 years of history. It's absolutely absurd that this person, a 40-year-old man, is only just learning about, American history. And the fact that he's talking about how the tired old Dinesh D'Souza tropes of how Democrats are the true racist ones, and remember the KKK was created by the Democrats, like all of these insane things is mind-boggling to me. And I'm a very outspoken Kanye advocate. I even went up against Jank on Twitter and I was like, "You're wrong. Kanye is a musical savant and like he's just doing this to sell albums." And now I feel terrible because
I think he might secretly be a marketing or a comedy genius. Yeah. I'm not sure. It's very hard to tell.
Well, he's definitely he's definitely a marketing wizard. But they do, Trump and Kanye, share something, right? They are both empty vessels, as you say. He's just now hearing all this stuff that he's regurgitating. It's just being fed to him. Everything from slavery to whatever. I mean,
to the civil rights movement.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, literally, he has no sense of anything that's not related to him. This completely leave aside the music. Now we're talking about the political forums. And he's got the fame that Trump had, right? So he's the empty vessel and the fame. So in that sense, he is like Trump. I mean, Trump and he are kissing cousins.
I don't know that he's empty, because I know at least at one time he created art that really inspired people. And at this point, I think he's been famous for so long, he's gotten kind of isolated and insular. He doesn't take constructive criticism. He views it as like attacks to him, very much like President Trump. And I think over time, his grip on things that are real to people has loosened. I mean, it almost feels like he thinks that classicism is the same as racism at this point, and it's not.
One thing I wanted to say is that Kanye is like performatively trying to be a centrist now, which is one of the most annoying type of people that you can be on the internet. The whole both sides are bad, but both sides are also good. We should love one another argument kind of falls to pieces when one side is literally advocating for, ethnic cleansing or an ethno state. We saw that happen with Donald Trump trying to defend Nazis at Charlottesville. And Kanye West is doing that. And the reason why I think it's performative is because while he is consistently blasting out misinformation about the Democrats, he then follows that up with this like very performative photo of Emma Gonzalez saying Emma Gonzalez is my hero, and then not really following that up with any sort of liberal principles or any sort of democratic principles. There was something from one of the text messages he got earlier today was about how socialism is so terrible for the world that you would have to be intellectually dishonest not to see it. It's all alt-right, red pill, MAGA bullshit, coated with a little bit of performative wokeness on the side to bring back liberals or maybe to anger conservatives by posting a photo of Emma Gonzalez.
It's really not clear what he's doing, because on one hand he's doing this pro-Trump MAGA stuff, and then Emma like picking up alt-right followers, dropping alt-right followers. I don't know what he's doing. So that leads me to think maybe he's just doing this for attention. It wouldn't be crazy.
Everything Kanye does is for attention. Everything Kanye does is for Kanye. And he admits that. And that's very similar to Donald Trump. And it's just sad that, we cover identity politics a lot on the show. And, I have this conversation with my black friends all the time. It's like being a black American is identity politics. Like everything you do is somewhat political. And I understand, just like Chance the Rapper even said, like you can be black and a conservative, but to then turn around and promote one of the more transparently racist administrations in history is kind of a sad way to market yourself or market your album. And I thought Kanye would be at least a little bit aware of that, or he would be above that, but apparently he's not, and it's made me and a bunch of other Kanye fans very sad.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber, and second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.